Welcome to the Fantasy Happy Hour. Fantasy Happy Hour. Presented by Sportsneak. With your hosts, Justin Sauce and Terry Licious. Starting in 3, 2, 1.
Boom! Welcome back. Week 15. Fantasy Happy Hour, episode 93, I think. We're getting close to 100 here. Probably won't be until the new year. Probably not even until next season. But it's the way the cookie crumbles. We'll start it off good next year, the big 100. We got the 9-4 San Francisco 49ers taking on the 7-6 Seattle Seahawks. The Niners coming off of a big 35-7 win over TB12 and the Bucks. And the Seahawks, big L, Carolina Panthers, take them 30-24. We got a big division rivalry game here, first and second place. Looks like more or less San Francisco's got the division locked up, but you never know how things could change here in the last few weeks, especially if the Seahawks start off with a big win this Thursday. Taryn, what do you got for us?
Yeah, the Seahawks need this to stay in the hunt for the wild card spot there. I think it's important for them to win now. And then the 49ers, man, do they look dominant now? Even with the injuries, they are playing well across the board. Defense, offense, it all looks good. The problem is their injuries just continue to build up. But Debo is news we need to know. He's probably out to week 17, 18. He did come back with just a sprain, so he will be back this season, they're saying, at least in the regular season. But it looks like closer to week 18. And then Kenneth Walker might make his return this week. He's been out for a while. Short week, so watch to see if he does start. I don't think it matters, which I'll get to. And then now we got the Seahawks joining the Vikings club of being labeled frauds this season. So the NFC looks overall like a lot of teams that people just don't believe in anymore. My Vikings being one of them. And then the Seahawks now kind of coming back to earth here a little bit, losing to two bad teams in the last 3 weeks. And then now they get a good team in the 49ers. Their defense ranks number 1 versus Seattle's 28th ranked defense. Their offense ranks number 9 compared to Seattle's 13th. So they're both middling to better offenses, but the defense disparity is huge. So that, like, how does Purdy, get to any yardage on this defense? We'll have to see. He was the last pick here in the 2022 NFL draft last year, so it's kind of an interesting note. But yeah, you're heading into Seattle. A lot of people saying letdown spot here for the 49ers on a short week, and then Seattle needs it. It's only 3.5 point spread, so it's kind of interesting. But okay, let's start a QB here. Brock Purdy, third string darling, comes in with a Q tag. And some short week news says that if he can't go, we got fourth string Josh Johnson coming in, and then we're going to see them run the ball probably 90% of the time. So Seattle second to last against the run this season. So they're giving up tons on the ground this season. And this offense is basically driven around the run. And now that with Christian McCaffrey there and, the weapons they have, great offensive line play. Trent Williams, he's number 1 ranked offensive lineman this season. So I think overall, this is a run-heavy script either way. And I don't think Purdy's going to be rushing a ton. He did get in the end zone with his legs there last week, which is why his fantasy score was as high as it was. So I just think you avoid probably the quarterbacks here. I think this is a week they're going to run the ball. And if you want, you can put him in if you think this is just a blowout. I think that's the reason to put him in, because he does throw to McCaffrey. McCaffrey's caught more TDs, I think, that he's ran in so far since coming over. So you can expect a lot of throwing. But overall, if you're leaning to a balanced lineup, I'd probably fade off the quarterback on this side of the ball, go more to Geno on the other side. But CMC is like a must-have, I think, in this game. He's the guy to fade if you want to fade 95% of the field, but it's tough to fade him in this kind of game. And then you go over to the other side. Geno, comeback player of the year nominee, still slinging the ball a ton. Like, he averages, I think it was 20.2 DK points still in these losses, and they are just going into shootouts game after game. The 49ers run D's awesome. Like, they give up, I think it was 79 yards per game this season, which is like 20 yards better than any other team. So they're barely getting guys, and that includes all runners, so over 100 yards. So it's just not a game to run the ball. So I think Gino's going to have to just sling it. And he has the weapons to do so with Metcalf, Goodwin, and Lockett, who, seem to be playing really well, even in these kind of trailing games. If the defense could step up, they'd probably be a much better team. It's funny to see Seattle go away from defense because, they've always been the Legion of Boom, all these kind of notes about them being a defensive team, but they're not great on defense this season. I did note here, we saw Gino get sacked 3 to 4 times a game in the last 3 weeks. This is an awesome D line in the 49ers that can get to a quarterback. So if you think this is a blowout and the defense, suffocates Gino, I don't think you play him because he could fumble one of these sacks. And I do expect them to get 4 to 5. They're just way too good on that end of the ball. But if they're trailing, he's going to throw a ton. So I think he's the better play overall at quarterback. Running back, I'll try to be a little quicker now. CMC, already a stud, comes into this scheme. This is a run-heavy scheme. So, last week we saw massive holes. He was getting 15-yard chunks, 40-yard chunks, and then he comes in with a 27-yard passing touchdown. I think he's the lock in this game. Banged up quarterback, 31st ranked run D. But the one note I would say is think about adding Jordan Mason as well. If you want to double stack McCaffrey with Mason. Mason saw that backup role. So last week, I think CMC ran 17 times and Mason's ran 10. And now they don't have Debo to do that kind of weird running back wide receiver thing. So I think Jordan Mason could be a great double stack with McCaffrey if you're not going to play the quarterback and expect a bit of a blowout. I don't really care who starts here on Seattle. I think this is just a bad spot to take a running back. They don't pass to their running backs much either in Seattle. So I think overall, just taking any running back doesn't make a lot of sense. The only reason too would be to take Kenneth Walker and hope they get on the 1 yard line and he bull rushes one in or two. And then, in showdown that matters. 2 touchdowns will get you into the winning lineup. So that would be the consideration, but they use much larger share of their wide receivers than anything. So I would probably avoid running backs. Wide receiver, we got to talk about Ayuk coming in now. He'll be the clear number 1. And then Kittle should be like that secondary target here for the passing game with Debo out. With CMC garnering both running and passing roles, though, you can almost add him as like a top receiver for this team with how many targets he gets. So I don't like taking more than one receiver usually on the 49ers side. They run the ball so much and they usually pass a lot to, of course, McCaffrey now. So due to the injuries overall, you could look to deeper like Juwan Jennings and Ray McLeod. Last week when Debo went out, Ray McLeod came in, I think, at the highest rate of all the backups. And he is a bit of a gadget guy that could run as well in those jet sweep kind of motions they do off the line. So I think that $1,200, he's probably the play if you want to sneak a guy in. And then on the other side, it's a Goodwin, Metcalf, Lockett. Those are your 3. Goodwin is kind of that outcast that will have a boom game or not. But Lockett and Metcalf, I wrote some notes here. Lockett averaging 17 DK points a game, 8 to 9 targets. Metcalf 15.3 at 9 to 10 targets a game. So they're not afraid to sling it to these two particularly. And I think you could triple stack that, right? Gino with those two. I just don't think it fits with McCaffrey. So you can't quite do that. But I think you got to pick at least one. They tend to throw the ball a ton. And in this type of game, I don't see other options. It's kind of the best way on Seattle. You don't really have a pass catching running back. Goodwin is kind of the guy you could slide in, but he's pricey now because he had a good week last week. Their tight ends get minimal usage. Fant has been disappointing. I would lean Will Disley or Cody Parkinson as like a sneaky catch a touchdown guy if you're going to go further. But I think you concentrate at either taking Metcalf, Lockett, and Gino. You got some combination of those two.
Also, if you look at week 2 when they played each other, both Lockett and Metcalf had 22 and 15 fantasy points. Like, I know you're looking at a different 49ers team they were playing at the time, but if you're going off past games too, something to look at. Those both look pretty good.
Yeah, I would agree. It could be one of those games where you take the full passing attack of this team and then take even the 49ers D in there and hope that they get there on maybe a couple pick sixes or a fumble recovery touchdown. But overall, I mentioned the D at the bottom here. 49ers D definitely in play, but very pricey. And then Seahawks very unlikely to be a defense I touch in this game. So I'll pass to you for the doinks because they might be valuable here.
Well, it's interesting for this week here. We got first on the Niners side of the ball, Robbie Gould, 6K. So a little bit, still a little bit pricey. Looking a little bit above average for what you usually pay for a kicker. He's averaging 8 fantasy points per game, so really not too great for the price anyways. Sitting 87% on field goals for the year, only 2 past the 50-yarder with a 51 being the season high long. Almost perfect on extra points. And looking back at his last 3 weeks here, he's trending above average for what he usually hits on the season with 10.3 fantasy points per game. Looking back too, just had to go back the previous time these two teams played, it was 27-7 for the 49ers. And that kind of also touches on what I'd said about those receivers. So if Metcalf and Lockett are still hitting 15, 22 fantasy points and only getting 7-point game, not bad if they hit the board a few times. Robbie came in with 9 fantasy points versus the Seahawks, so pretty good for the price point back. I think it was $4,500 to start the season. Not sure I would pay it this week at 6K price point. Other side of the ball, we got Jason Myers. He's $300 cheaper at 5.7 thousand. He's averaging a little bit higher, 9.4 fantasy points per game. Same percentage, 96% on the year for field goals. But the difference here, he's had to hit five past 50 yards, with his 56-yarder being the long on the season. So if the Seahawks are going to get in any sort of scoring position out far, there's a pretty good shot he's hitting it. But the last 3 weeks trending downwards and below what he usually hits for fantasy points, only 8.6 fantasy points per game. And he got 1 the last time they played in the, and that was the extra point there. So nothing too special. If I'm being completely honest, this is one of those weeks where I'd probably fade the kickers. If you are going to use one, you kind of just toss a coin and pick one depending on your game script. We were pretty lucky the past few weeks having some good kicking options here. This week, throwing a dart at the dartboard, boys. That's really it. Anything else to add in on this one there, Taryn?
No, I think if you look to that week 2 game, I think this could be an identical type of game. I think you might lean towards, like, if you look, the run game couldn't get going for Seattle. I think it was 14 attempts. They got 25 yards or 27 yards like total. And then they, of course, had to funnel everything to Lockett and Metcalf and just throw the ball a lot, even though they didn't result in much. So, yeah, I see a similar thing happening here. So I think lean towards how you want to, play that out. But it's mostly run game from the 49ers and then pass game from Seattle. But Seattle doesn't find the end zones. Maybe that's a reason to take their kicker. So that could be a logical play with them.
You're also looking back on the week 2 game here. I'm going to butcher his name, but what's his name? Kyle Juszczyk.
Yeah, Juszczyk.
Yeah. He's like priced around $4,000 or $4,500, and I think he got 7 or 8 fantasy points in that week 2 one. So
yeah, he had a fullback carry on the 1-yard line.
Yeah, so,
yeah, you could bank on that. There is some cheap guys that I do like him and Ray, and I do like Cody Parkinson weirdly, just because Seattle tends to run these weird wheel routes with their tight ends. So could be nice. The weather looks good, so it should just play like a normal game. So yeah, have fun with it.
Let us know who you guys are taking in the comments, what you guys got for this week. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video or if Taryn taught you anything. Give us a subscribe if you're really enjoying some of the stuff, and if not, we'll see you for week 16, where then we're going into the final 3 weeks here before some playoff action. Is it 3 weeks? Is it 18 this year?
Yeah, but I think we might be moving away from Thursdays next week, but I'm just checking.
Oh yeah, we're getting down.
Oh no, we get one more.
Okay.
Two more. Oh, we have more.
One more Thursday one for the fellas. Two more Thursday ones for the fellas. Sweet. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the football game and go Houston, who blew a lead to the Cowboys. Boo.